Good morning, all. Welcome to Lab. This is a very exciting day. We are celebrating the lab not only as an institution, not only as a sort of party space, which many of you have experienced in the past, an intellectual party space, but we're also celebrating the lab as a community, as really a community of an infectious idea, which over the course of the last quarter century or more, we have determined and have all experienced that the lab is, in fact, an infectious idea, an idea that invites intellectual inquiry, invites questioning, invites thought, invites participation. And therefore, we welcome the community in this room. Please, let's make some noise. The community up there. Many levels of community here, including the folks out on the web who will be experiencing the lab as never before in the simulcast both today and tomorrow. I will have a few more things to say because on this day, folks, this isn't the sort of TED conference, sit back and relax kind of thing. No, you have to work. You're working today. And it is our aim that at the end of your work today, you will have seen the lab as never before and really experienced just what goes on here. And the fact that the ideas and the sense of participation and doing at the lab is something that you can take with you into your work and into your lives. So, without further ado, let me welcome the director of the MIT Media Lab, Joe Ito.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, John. And it's really great to see all the familiar faces and all the great new faces. And as John said, we're streaming this on the internet, and I saw some tweets from my good friends on Twitter as well. So it's very interactive, as John said, but it's also interactive from the internet. And so I want everybody to remember we're all kind of on stage together. And a really important part of one of the things that we're trying to push is this idea of a Media Lab network. And I think in the past there has always been interactions between the people, but as we think more and more about the Media Lab becoming more of a platform rather than a container, I think it's the interactions between the members of the Media Lab, including everybody here, as well as people on the internet, and to think about this as a peer-to-peer community, kind of a tribe, is another model that I'd like you to have as you participate, as well as for all the people on the net. Another really important thing is that this is actually the first time that we will be streaming our research content. So we've had speakers, we've had things, but the Media Lab, because of all kinds of rules that I won't go into, we kept a lot of our research closed. And for the first time, we're actually going to be streaming these things, and we'll have outtakes from the labs itself, and then we're going to be posting the videos online. So people always used to say, well, I don't really know what the Media Lab does. It's just those few TED videos that I've seen. This is the first time where we're completely opening up, so that's kind of a new thing. So I'd like everybody to sort of give us feedback on that. And a key word at the Media Lab is reinvention. So we're reinventing ourselves, we're reinventing the lab, we're reinventing the format. So feedback both in real time and afterwards is also really important. And yesterday I spent the whole day with, I'm currently calling it the Advisory Council, a group of really great friends of mine who've come together to help think about the future of the lab. And we'll be putting together, we're still working on it, but we're putting together a panel at 5 o'clock where we're going to be talking about that, and I'll be soliciting a lot of feedback and some of the thoughts that we have. And so I'd really like you guys to participate in that as well. But anyway, I really look forward to interacting with you over the next couple of days. And for the agenda parts, I will have other more qualified people talk about it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh, Herr.
Hello and good morning. How's everyone? I thought I'd just take a few minutes to go over the agenda for tomorrow. We have a really exciting single-day symposium organized called Inside Out. So as you can see, the details are projected here. So with John as our tour guide, Inside Out will examine how, through a deeper understanding of the natural world, designers are fundamentally changing the nature of technology. We will contemplate a future in which technology will reflect who we are fundamentally. connecting into the essence of our species, technologies that will go far beyond mere assistive devices and will instead seamlessly meld with our communities, our minds, and our bodies. So we'll begin with a section on Inside Out IO community, and then we'll go into Inside Out Mind, break for lunch, and then follow up with Inside Out Body. Joining us tomorrow for this extraordinary conversation on the future of design will be biologist Craig Venter. We will also have neuroscientist Theodore Berger and Sebastian Sung. Also joining us will be design curator Paola Antonelli from the MoMA and John Maeda from RISD. And last but not least, Reid Hoffman will be here, the co-founder of LinkedIn. So Inside Out will explore how nature is driving design. Stating just a few examples of what you'll hear tomorrow, you'll hear about robotic appendages that are controlled by spinal reflexive actions. You'll hear about engineered memories with hippocampal-like networks. Inside Out will also examine how design is driving nature. So tomorrow you'll hear about the use of DNA strand from single-celled algae, allowing researchers to turn on and off specific cells within the brain. This optogenetic strategy will allow clinicians in the future to treat a whole host of brain disorders. You also hear about the construction of new single-celled organisms from synthetic genomes. So tomorrow, Inside Out, be here. It will be an experience we will all not soon forget. Following the symposium, at 3:30, we'll have a lab exploration. And then at 5, we'll have cocktails. And then at 6, we'll adjourn for our individual dinner meetings. Thank you.
And now a few words from Hiroshi Ishii.
Good morning. I'm Hiroshi Ishii, and it's a great pleasure to have this event in such a beautiful day. Sky is very high, and but interesting. There's few remarks. First, there are a lot of the international audience. So in this conference, also we provide Japanese simultaneous translations. So details here, but I hope you can take advantage of this service of translations. But also please don't forget to return the receivers. Yeah, okay, so next. Also, if there's any questions and issues about intellectual property, that's very important topics for the industries, please feel free to contact to this address, marissa@media@mit.edu. Also, another very important announcement is next year. It's 1 year ahead, but 2013, we already decided to have an event for members, April 22nd to 25th. So hope you can write down in your e-calendars. So now I'd like to give a short presentation about defy gravity and perspective. And I think we are now on the ground because of the gravities. We seldom ask why we have to accommodate this gravity. So that's one of the reasons I like the term defying gravity or 0G. So intellectually, how to fly high, defying the gravity, something very important theme for us. So we literally implemented new materials called Xenon, which is the natures of the anti-gravity. So levitating, floating materials, you can put anywhere in the space. Also, computer know where it is. Also, computer can move it. So it can be the new plastic in the 60s, but using these new materials, you can really go next levels of the thinking. So we are in a constant flux of changes, and we constantly keep asking, where are we now, and where we are heading to? I think to answer this question, also flying high, having a perspective seems to be so important. So in a sense, this community is sharing variety of the perspective, juxtaposing, starting all the discourse. This is one of the great visualization our colleague from Autodesk Research here in this audience did a visualization of the impact of scientific paper in academia. This is one of my old paper, but seeing the influence in the community and the society. This is another very famous picture that the Professor Cesar Hidalgo did with collaborator about atlas of the how economic structure, international situation can be visualized. So you can read a lot of the ideas. Also, there's another example of the project called the Source Map, which Dr. Leonardo Bonanni, who graduated from a group, then starting company, tried to make supply chain transparent. So we have to be able to accountable to the client and the society about where these materials came from, where your products are made of, also how seriously you are thinking about environmental impact. So open sourcing and also crowdsourcing all the supply chain, putting them together, now you can really understand all the dynamism of the flow of the materials, also environmental impact. So here you see the examples that many companies are starting using, not only internal discussion, but also communicating to their clients. One interesting example is, this is a Tropicana's example of supply chain. But if you superimpose this supply chain with global warming map, now you see something very important. Here, from Ivory Coast, all the cacao is coming. So today, it's a green area produce these materials, cocoa. But in 2015, it's gone. So superimposing these two different perspectives, now you clearly see important message. This supply chain cannot work in 40 years. What do you do? So understanding risk, fragility, all come from this kind of visualization and the perspective. Another example I want to share with you is 311. Almost 1 year ago, Japan hit the huge natural disasters. That's starting from the earthquake, then tsunami, and the nuclear crisis. Still, we are suffering from this series of the disasters. But also many people citizens stood up using social media or internet to deal with this crisis. So Joe Ito, director of the Media Lab, started this project, SafeCast, producing a Geiger counters, distributing the citizens, then letting data shared so that people can have real information to make a judgment whether mother can let her kids play on the ground today or not. So also we started various projects. One is a GeoSense, which tells you to allow people to bring any data. It's an open source environment. You can put any data. For example, you can drop, for example, all the past history of the earthquake in past 100 years. So all of a sudden, you see all the potential dangers, variety of the visualizations. But also you can plot where nuclear power plants exist. And then also you can focus to Japan in this case. Then this is data that SafeCast, Joy started, collected huge data, superimposing. Now you can start seeing the relationship among those points. This is Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, then all the radiations. And also this is another model to simulate the impact of the tsunami, coastal flooding. So understanding risk, then prepare to design resilient world to deal with next disaster or series of next disaster is something very important. And I think to do so, sharing the perspective things is something very important. And that's the reason we are here. So I like universe. People observed the universe using with naked eyes for many years. But the 14th century, they invented a telescope, which extensively magnified their power to see the world. Then big observatory on the mountains. But one very important jump happened when eyes decoupled from your head or Earth. The Hubble Space Telescope now fly away, defying gravity outside of the ground, so that now you can see the world very differently. Voyager is my favorite stuff. It really gave me the new perspective to ourselves, us. So gaining the new perspective is so important to understand about us, also and the futures. So hope these meetings can really great opportunity to share our new perspective, also learn from you guys. So thank you, and welcome to the media lab.
And also to help get us going and set the tone for the next 2 days, Andy Lippman, please welcome.
I'm actually really petrified doing this. I mean, this is the first time we've radiated what we do in this room out to the entire world, but that's not scary. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the notion that we're putting up the tweets. So when people respond to that and tweet back, you're going to see it. And that's the part that scares me. I have this thing with my students. You see, I don't tweet much, but my students do. And there are a couple of sites, if you want to hear about them, that you can go to. I mean, one of them is Things My Jerk Advisor Said. Okay, that's actually a tweet stream. And there's another one that's mine. I don't know what the word they use instead of jerk is. But so it's the tweets that scare me. Listen, I want to give you your instructions for the day. And a perspective and a way to think about what's happening. Because I think you're in for a jolt, and I think we're in for a jolt. Because, you know, we've talked about the new Media Lab, but we are really at the threshold of something completely different. And it's different from 25 years of history. We started this laboratory 25, 26, 27 years ago, depends on how you count. And the theme was all about being digital. It was all about making things digital. And the theory of why we wanted to make things digital was because when it was digital, it was malleable, it was controllable, it was democratizable, it was in the hands of everybody. And there were good reasons for wanting to do that. But the most important reason was when something became digital, then it could understand itself. And in a way that it never could before. When you had a television set that was analog, it could tune to a channel, and it would know the channel it was tuned to, but it didn't know what the program was. It didn't know what the content was. But when it was digital, it could suddenly understand what that content was. And for 25 years, that's been our goal. And for 25 years, we've never quite reached it. We've nibbled around the edges of that. We rendered things digital. We worked on bodies now, but we worked originally on text and sound and movies, and we got a little bit of understanding there, and a little bit of understanding, but a lot of digitization, and it transformed the world. But now, after 25 years, we are suddenly poised to go to what that original dream was, to realize that original dream, that notion of digital understanding. And you're going to see that. Hugh gave you an insight into that reflected in what you're going to see tomorrow. I'm going to give you sort of a perspective on what some of us are how some of us are thinking about that problem that may help you look through the world today. So why is it that we're suddenly poised for that world of understanding in a way that we weren't before? And I'm going to say things that not everybody agrees with. It's the nature of the laboratory that not everybody agrees with anything anybody says. That's sort of the rules of MIT. It's also the rules of a Jewish family, I guess, at Thanksgiving. But in any case, you know, why are we ready now we weren't before? Well, so let me give you just four thoughts or perspectives on that. One of them is the world of data, okay? People call it big data. There was a dinner I called Big Dinner last night that was about big data. But if you think about where we are today, we are suddenly poised to not just amass large amounts of data, but we have the analytical tools and the storage facilities and the processing to understand what that data means. Big data is data that's big in scope. It's big in dimension as opposed to just being big in size, and it's big in timeliness. 25 years ago, that was a dream. Today, it's a reality. Today, suddenly understanding all of those dimensions of the world around us that we call data is now a possibility. That's a part of what we mean by digital understanding. We're able to use this digitization to understand places in ways that we never understood before. Whether those places are laboratories, homes, or even just cities, we can now suddenly understand them. Cities are always based on things like energy, transportation, but they're also transformed and based on information. The skyscrapers that line our cities today are enabled by the telephone. A revolution in communication caused a revolution in the way those cities work. You couldn't get the information out physically, but when you could electronically, then suddenly you could build tall buildings. The face and understanding of places will change because of what we understand with being digital today. Sensing. Sensing 10 years ago was a dream. You could walk out and say, I've got an idea, I want to know when the bus is coming. And someone would say to you, what are we going to do? Put a GPS receiver on every bus and every taxi cab and every person in the world? That's ridiculous. Now it's done. It's done. So understanding and gathering the information from the world around us is not necessarily a solved problem, but it's a problem that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and start to think about solving. That's a dimension of understanding. And finally, and perhaps most important, there's an understanding of people that's based on our understanding of being digital, that we are at the threshold of doing. We could start to sense and detect and recognize what people were doing, but we couldn't recognize the attitude. We couldn't recognize what was going on underneath that. 30 years ago, if you had a skid in your car, you could recover from that skid in your car on the ice. And we didn't know whether it took 10% of your mental energy to be able to do that or 90%. And that matters, because if something else goes wrong, we can throw you out of your envelope. Now, I was having dinner last night with one of our guests from Lockheed Martin. He's building airplanes where you don't fly the airplane. You think about where you want the airplane to go, and the airplane understands your intention and reacts to that intention and does the best job it can, subject to two constraints of doing what you want: that it doesn't crash and it doesn't eject the pilot or cause the pilot to die from overdoing it himself. So understanding what people are doing, understanding not just how they express themselves, but understanding the intentions and meaning behind that, which is likewise a new threshold of our ability to learn things. So the era that we're entering now, and the era that you're going to see throughout the laboratory in the course of today, is the dawn or the beginning of what I think of as that era of digital understanding. We've crossed the threshold past the era of digital representation, and we're thinking about the era of digital understanding. Tim O'Reilly was here a couple of days ago, and he gave a talk, and he mentioned that in 2006, 6 years ago, DARPA had a challenge for a car that could drive autonomously, and that car drove 7 miles without a driver, and it took hours for it to do that. Within the last year, Google has a car that's driven 100,000 miles without anybody in it. How was it able to do that? It was able to do that because Street View and maps and data and algorithms had filled that car with so much information that it understood what it was doing. It drove through the streets of populated cities because it felt that it had been there before. 25 years ago, we built a map that presaged Street View and tried to build an experience so that when you went to a place, you would feel like you had been there before. That was the first step at making it digital. Google's car is a step at making it understandable. So that's the larger picture and the threshold and where we're starting to be. Now, most of the people here in the laboratory, the ones who are pursuing goals like that and goals like Hugh talked about that you will see tomorrow, most of the people here in the lab, our dream is global. Our dream is to make the world a better place, whether that involves ensuring that every kid in the world knows how to read, whether that involves solving problems of poverty, whether it involves solving problems of global energy, or simply solving the problem of having people realize their potential and abilities and opportunities on their earth. That's what you come to a university for that kind of breadth, that kind of reach, that kind of dream, and that kind of aspiration. And that's what we in the Media Lab are searching for. And so my instructions to you for the day are to make those connections, because you share those dreams and you also work. And all of those dreams have off-ramps, as one of our members called it, connections between the passion, the dream, and the global vision, and what we need to do today to both realize it and both be successful along the way. So your job is to look, follow the dream, find the connections between yourselves, make those connections, and together we'll all work together and make that happen. So those are my instructions for the day. Thanks and enjoy it.